Okay, in this video I'm going to talk about Class C network subnetting, and this is the simplest example of subnetting of networks that we have, and so I get to show you here how we do that. What we're going to do is we're going to take a Class C network which has 3 octets describing the network number. In other words, those bits, those 24 bits, are all network bits, and the last octet here is giving the host bits. Okay, so in this network we start off with n equals 24 and h equals 8, and what that means is that we have a network size of 256 IP addresses in this network. And so what we're going to do is we're going to subnet this. We're going to break these 256 into some number of subnets. And we can either have one subnet. Let's see, if I create a little table here, number of subnets and the number of IPs each. I can either leave it as a Class C and have just one big Class C network with 256 IPs in it, or I can break it into 2, each with 128, 3, each with 64, 4, each with 32, 8. What am I doing here? 128, 4 subnets, each of size 64, 8 subnets, each of size 32, 16 subnets, each of size 16. So you can see that 16 times 16 is 256. The product of the number of subnets and the number of IPs in the subnets is always 256. 32 subnets of size 8 and 64 subnets of size 4. And that's about as small of a subnet as we're going to get. Okay? And we do this by taking the H. Let's just look at the 4th octet and look at what we're going to do to make these subnets. We're going to take that octet and we're going to have some number of subnet bits. So for example, 2 subnet bits and 6 host bits. What we're going to do is we're going to borrow host bits and turn them into subnet bits. And in this case, with 2 subnet bits, I can label 4 subnets. If I have 3 subnet bits and 5 host bits, I can label 8 subnets, and so on. So, for example, 4 subnet bits and just 4 host bits. You can see now that when I want 16 subnets, I need 4 subnet bits, because 2 to the 4th is 16. Likewise, I have 4 host bits now. 2 to the 4th is 16 again. With 2 subnet bits, I get 2 squared, or 4 subnets, and I have H host bits here, giving me 64 IPs. Again, 2 raised to the power of the number of S bits or the number of H bits gives us the number of subnets and the number of IPs in each. So I can continue this and say for 32 subnets I need to have 5 subnet bits, because 2 to the 5th is 32, and I'm only left with 3 H bits, and 2 to the 3rd is 8. Finally, here, for 64 subnets I need 6 subnet bits and 2 H bits. 2 to the 6th is 64, and 2 squared is 4. I suppose I can go back here and do the same little thing for only one subnet bit, and 7 host bits, and finally the original class C network with H host bits in the 4th octet. Okay, this is the 4th octet. Okay, so this is the basic idea of subnetting. What we're going to do is we're going to borrow H bits and turn them into S bits, and then in those bit positions we're going to count to create the number of subnets, and in the H positions we're going to count to create the number of hosts, or the number of IP addresses. So the first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and use, for example, a Class C private network. Let's go ahead and start with 192.168.10. .x is what I've been writing so far. Let me specify now that this x ranges from 0 to 255, which we know, and let me define the subnet, or the network ID, which is 192.168.10.0, and let me also define the network broadcast address, 192.168.10.255. And this .10 network, again, is just one of the 255 private Class C networks that we have. Okay, and I'm just using the .10 because it's convenient. Okay, so we have 2 special addresses on a subnet, on a network. The first one is the network ID, and that is all zeros in the 4th octet. And the second one is the network broadcast with all ones in the 4th octet. And this is for a Class C, okay? And for a Class C network, this whole octet is H bits. And so we're going to let the H bits range from all zeros to all ones in our networks. And the all zeros H bits is the network ID, and the all ones H bits is the broadcast. Recall that for the original Class C subnet, before I've really subnetted, there's only one subnet. I haven't divided it up at all. All 8 of these bits in the 4th octet are H bits. And so we're letting those H bits range from 0, all zeros, to all ones. And those 2 addresses are special. They're not used for hosts. Okay? Okay, so now I can talk about subnetting this private Class C into 2 subnets. So for example, Class C divided into 2 subnets. What we're going to do is we're going to say the N is 24, that's fixed. And the original H is 8, but we're going to change that so the H, so we have S is 1 and H is 7 now. Okay, and so our last octet is going to look like this. It's going to have 1 subnet bit and 7 host bits. Okay, and so what's going to happen as our last octet ranges from all zeros to all ones, the first half of them, let's start at all zeros. And the very next IP address here is 1, and we're just counting in binary now. Okay, and we're going to go dot, dot, down, and we're going to go all the way down to 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And this is the first subnet. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this S bit label the subnet. And now the host bits range from all zeros to all ones. And then if I continue, the next binary number is 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 and 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 1, etc., all the way down to all ones. Oops. Oh, for heaven's sakes. I'm going to move it up here. All ones. Okay? And so now we have 128 IPs here, and we have 128 IPs here. And our first subnet, which has a 0 out front, has an ID of 192.168.10.0, and it has a broadcast address of 192.168.10. Well, we're going to look at this now. We're going to look at the very last address in the first subnet, and that is a 0 with 7 ones. That's a 127. Okay? In our second subnet, we're going to have an ID of 192.168.10.128, the next one up. And that's right here, the 1, second subnet, so we get the 1 in the S bit, and we start with all zeros, and all zeros in the H bits give us the subnet ID. And the broadcast address is 192.168.10.255. So this is the simplest case of dividing a Class C into 2 subnetworks by taking the original 8 host bits and breaking them up into 1 subnet bit plus 7 host bits. And now we have so the number, we can also use this new S and this new H to count the number of subnets and the number of IPs in each subnet. The number of subnets is 2 to the S, which is in this case 2 to the 1, or 2, and the number of IPs each is equal to 2 to the H. This includes the subnet ID and the broadcast, which is 128. Okay? I will start with a new video and show you how to divide Class C networks up into more than 2 subnets by setting S to larger numbers.